I'm back with some more Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Timeline. We're going to check out part 2. And I have to say, man, it's intriguing, if not a little bit confusing. And apparently this part's going to be the most confusing according to MatPat. So I'm curious to see exactly what he's going to tell us. If you're excited for this, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you're new here and you've been enjoying the content, well, why haven't you subbed yet? Do it now.
Hello, Internet.
What's
Welcome
up?
to Game Theory, and
Good to be back,
page
man.
7 of the FNAF timeline script.
We
Last
hope
time we
it
covered
says.
The origins of Freddy's. We talked about William Afton's childhood
Yeah,
dream
the
project
dancing
of making
bear,
a singing
bro.
bear come to life, and the infuriating moment that his dream is copied by a rival restaurant franchise looking to steal away his success. The
Not for nothing. That dude, Henry Emily, his name was, he was a better looking dude than Afton, too. Then again, we really didn't get to see Afton. We just see this avatar here. At least the picture for Henry Emily, he looked actually sort of suave, right? He had nice long hair.
The merger of the two franchises results in William meeting Henry, a brilliant designer with a knack for robotics. Working together, they make Fredbear's flourish, spawning popular Saturday morning cartoon shows, toy lines, and spin-off restaurants.
Got a whole
under the Fazbear
franchise,
name.
man.
When last we left
Making
him,
all kinds of
Afton
money.
was thriving. The world of robotics opening his eyes to new and exciting ways of bringing characters to life. Bringing things to life. Yeah, that was his core driving force, his passion. And it was this very passion that would mutate, twist, and morph from here on out in the story. Because with life, there is inevitably death. Something that Afton would become intimately familiar with.
Oh, I wonder what happens.
Part 2,
Let's
where
go.
things are about to get dark in a
Let's
hurry.
go, dude. It's time for part 2. The Afton
1983,
era.
Business was booming with two whole restaurant franchises running, Fredbear's Family Diner and the newly opened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Together, William and Henry had been able to take the hybrid suit idea and make it into a reality. They called
Dude, that Bonnie Bunny or whatever that thing's called is so creepy looking.
their new invention, the Springlock suit. And
The
fittingly
Springlock
enough, it was
suit.
symbolic
They
of the
mentioned that last
partnership between these two
episode.
men.
Okay.
A human suit as designed by William that could become a freestanding Henry-style robot. But because it was still new tech with kinks to work out, the rollout was limited, restricted only to the Fredbear's Family Diner location. All of this meant that William was busier than ever. He didn't have time to be a full-time parent, so he designed a nanny cam system where cameras and speakers were hidden throughout the neighborhood, as well as in his youngest son's favorite toy, Psychic Friend Fredbear.
Wait a second. Throughout the neighborhood? What? Is that what he just said? Not just in his home, but throughout the entire neighborhood, he set up security cameras? Taking it to the next level there, don't you think? And this Springlock suit, what is that? Or Springtrap? Is it like an animatronic suit, but a person can go in it as well? Because they said that he threw a kid in a suit at the end of like the last part, which I was kind of like, what the hell, dude?
I mean, plushy Fredbear. But since cameras just weren't enough to raise a kid, he also left
does that
childcare
Fredbear
duties
become
to
actually
his eldest
psychic?
son, Michael. There was just one problem with that. Michael was far from the best babysitter. He tormented his younger brother by jump scaring him with a foxy mask and constantly
He was a
left him
menace.
behind. William watched all of it from his cameras. Kids would be kids. Tomorrow was another day after all.
You don't step in and tell him to stop doing that?
Except Michael's torment didn't stop. Bitter, angry thoughts would run through Michael's mind.
What?
Why did he have to be the one to take care of this whining crybaby all the time? It just wasn't fair. It was time that he got even with his brother by playing the ultimate prank. A prank.
Not your brother's fault, though. You should go talk to your dad about that, man. It ain't fair, but it's not your brother's fault.
That just so happened to be on this crying child's birthday. He and his friends would take his scared little brother and make him do the one thing that he was terrified of doing, getting close to the animatronics. That would be embarrassing for the kid that was such an embarrassment to him. His brother squirmed, screamed, kicked, and fought, but just as they were putting that small, squirming boy up to Fredbear's lips, the mouth snapped shut. The sensitive spring
what the
locks inside
hell?
the body had been triggered by the boy's movements, and they'd immediately clamped down. The wriggling stopped. The boy went limp, but it was just a prank.
That was his son.
Funny. The boy was taken to the
And
hospital
his brother.
and was immediately given an IV, flowers and pills
he's
filled the
okay?
nightstand next to his hospital bed. But the damage was too severe. He couldn't recover. As the younger brother's consciousness began to fade, he could hear Michael's last words, a small and flimsy apology. But his father, Williams, through the voice of the Fredbear plush, were a firm and committed promise to a dying son. You're broken. I will put you back together. This would not be the end. No matter what, William's son would
kidding
live
me?
again. It would just take time. Time that, right now, he just didn't have. His young son's heart flatlined as the boy faded into the inky unknown.
He wants to
of
make
afterlife.
robot
In the aftermath
children,
of the
he said.
tragedy,
They said
changes
last
started
episode.
happening around the
So
restaurants. Kids were now required to wear security wristbands to prevent anyone from getting outside without parental permission.
I would
Any
think
kid
so.
who approached the exit without permission would have to answer to the security puppet, a marionette on strings that could fly around on rails across the restaurant to stop kids in their tracks. It was
yeah, that sounds terrifying, bro. It looks like the doll from Saw. What the hell?
William's idea, inspired by Michael constantly leaving the restaurant without his brother. In the wake of Fredbear's spring lock failure, all the hybrid suits were getting retired, locked away at the nearby Freddy Fazbear location. It was yet another tough pill to swallow after all the hard work that he and Henry had put into them. William would eventually bury the boy's small body in a remote location out in the woods right alongside his drive into and out of work every day. The death of this little boy sent the family spiraling. His wife, crippled with grief, was so distraught that all she could do was sit and watch TV. But his son Michael was far worse, complaining of seeing hallucinations of a golden bear standing outside of his window. The boy was so
killed
racked
his
with
brother,
guilt that
dude.
he was convinced that he was being haunted by the ghost of his brother stuck inside the suit that took his life. The suit's three-toed feet digging into the wet earth. The words "It's me" ringing through Michael's ears.
Is he really experiencing this, or is he having
a break out of his room to check the gravesite and ensure that his brother was still there? As for William himself, he disappeared into his work and his drinks. Junior's, the local bar, wasn't far from his son's gravesite. He found himself going there more and more frequently, spending longer and longer amounts of time there. The bar gave him a place to think, to remember, to reflect and stew on how Henry had stolen his idea for an animal-themed restaurant. How they
not about, the fact that you lost your son, right? Not about that. How your guy's creation pretty much killed your kid, right? How you weren't keeping an eye on your own children and letting, Michael know that it wasn't right what was going on.
Cut his character out of the cartoon when everyone else was there. How Henry had humiliated him by buying him out of bankruptcy.
Here we go.
And now there was his son. Henry had taken his son from him.
No, it wasn't Henry, bro, but of course he's going to go to
William
that
ordered
conclusion.
one more drink, but it was one too many. The bar turned him out and told him to go home. But William didn't go home. Drunk and angry, William raced back to the restaurant to give Henry a piece of his mind, only to find someone else waiting. Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked outside of the building, bullies laughing at her through the window. Fine, some other problem to fix. But then Afton got an idea. A beautifully awful idea. This was his chance to get back at the man that had humiliated him all those years ago. Henry had
look
killed
how they're
his business,
painting him.
and now Henry's robotic suit had killed his son. It was time for William to do some killing of his own. Let Henry feel what it's like to have something you love get ripped away. While parties continued inside the walls of the pizzeria, William attacked Charlie in the back alley.
So this is when he starts murdering people?
Felt good. He felt free. The years of resentment and bitterness trapped in his heart finally released in a moment of pure unapologetic evil.
Dude. He broke.
Would make Henry hurt like he hurts.
And this is where he snapped and he starts to fall in the darkness.
He dropped Charlie's lifeless body and drove home, forced to confront his family problems later that night, appalled, but also a little excited by what he had just done. Charlie's death would remain on the books as a random act of violence. And though Henry had suspicions about William, there was no physical evidence, nothing that could link him back to the crime. In the weeks that followed, Fredbear's Family Diner would close for good. Two high-profile deaths around the
that's not good PR, man.
Owners in such a short period of time was just too much bad press to handle. Besides, Freddy Fazbear's was still open, and it was the newer restaurant anyway. All the equipment from the diner, including the old yellow suits and security puppet, would get retired to that location.
Are they ever going to come back, I wonder?
Would sit for 2 uneventful years.
2 years are going to come back,
and 1984 were spent quietly grieving. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the new cast of characters were a hit. Tragic memories of their yellow predecessors quickly faded. Afton kept a low profile and buried himself in work and research, quickly reaching Henry's level of engineering and even surpassing it.
He
and while
caught
Henry
up.
slowed down to grieve, Afton kept going, even starting his own company, Afton Robotics, for all those pet projects that were a little bit too experimental for the regular operations of the pizzeria.
This guy's going down a dark path now, man.
A secret workshop under his house.
Well, then again, he's been going down the dark path when he murdered the girl. Like, what the hell? Is he going to try to recreate his son? They talked about robotic kids last episode.
Bunker, which allowed him to work while still monitoring his kids via hidden security cameras. 1983. A passcode that served as a constant reminder of why the cameras were so important. Why he was down there in the first place. This was all to fulfill the promise that he had made to his son, right? I will put you back together. This was for him. All for him. Right? But cameras weren't enough.
No,
he needed to solve
it's
the
actually for Afton,
problem.
dude.
He had to keep him in the house. He couldn't have another one of his kids wind up dead inside of an animatronic suit. So why not run a little experiment on Michael? You see, all this work with Henry had gotten Afton to start learning more about life, robots, the human mind, and what a fallible machine we as humans were. Our reality is so easy to manipulate with a few sensory deceptions. Deceptions like sound. With just a few sounds,
so he's going to start experimenting on his kid?
He could transform blank smooth plastic robots into lumbering, twisted nightmares. Nightmares far scarier than he could create with actual materials. They would appear organic, rotting, putrid, terrifying.
Yeah, it's crazy.
These would be his means of keeping his son Michael in the house where he belonged. Was it extreme? Maybe.
Oh, yeah, a little
this
bit.
was the boy who had killed his son. He would
I mean,
make him
yeah.
sorry. And so Michael would grow
So he actually does hold a grudge against him as well. It's your fault, Afton.
up not only dealing with the memories of his own guilt, the hospital room, the pills, the flowers, the death of his brother, but also facing literal nightmares,
what?
illusions created by sound. Michael
He feels guilty, you know what I mean? So he's literally seeing illusions created by noise, by sound. Like, that's actually wild. He's suffering as well, you know what I mean? He feels guilty for what happened to his brother. Like, this all comes down to the parent, bro. It comes down to Afton.
would never forget these either. Years later, as a security guard, he would still draw pictures of them inside of his logbook. But all of these extra projects meant that his home life suffered even more.
Was he a
an
security
absent
guard at
father
the...
and a non-existent husband, leaving his wife cold and alone.
Why do you hide inside your
Bro, that's creepy. What is going on?
There is music in my heart.
Hello? Excuse me?
Is an empty room. No more joy, an empty tomb.
Talking about the kid.
And despite her repeated demands that he leave his office and engage with the family, he refused time and time again, leaving her no choice but to leave.
You burned down my house?
You call that a house? It was like a morgue in there. You need to see your son.
The baby isn't mine.
Well, how's this? I'm keeping the diamond ring.
And through it all, there was one lingering
course.
feeling. William wasn't done. He had gotten a taste of what it felt like to be unleashed, what it felt like to be free.
He got a
Charlie's
taste, bro.
murder had unlocked something,
Yep.
and he wanted more. June 26th, 1985. Putting
2
on the
years
golden
later.
bodysuit, he lured children one by one to the back room of the pizzeria
Hello?
where no one was looking. At first,
Okay, so now he's literally wearing the suit while murdering people. And the suit, Bonnie the Rabbit or whatever, was like his avatar, right?
First, he was cautious. He would lure them with promises of cake and cookies. He told them that their dog had died. He would ask for help with
stranger
homework.
danger,
Susie was the
dude.
first. You never truly forget your first.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But where to hide the bodies? He couldn't sneak out. Someone would see him. He had to hide them in a place where they'd never be found and where they'd never leave the
In the
building.
freaking
They had to be
animatronics,
stuffed,
dude.
Stuffed inside of the suits. No one maintained those things anyway except for him. And so Susie would go into Chica. Fritz, Jeremy, and Gabriel would come next. But it was easy. It was too easy. And with each little life he snuffed out, his lies got bigger. Their house was burning. They're just being kidnapped. Until the last one where
hell,
all
dude?
pretense was off. He let himself get violent. Too violent.
I'll just wait for him after school, throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him into the back of my car.
The body of Cassidy
Dude's
was
a
far more
psychopath.
bloody and broken than any of the others. He'd let himself go too far. That one he shouldn't have killed. With no more active animatronics left,
have
he
killed
shoved
any
the
of
body
them.
into the one suit that remained backstage, the long-forgotten yellow Fredbear, now broken and discolored with age. Broken, like
Well, that's the
Cassidy
one that
was
killed
broken,
his son,
like
right?
his son was
Yeah.
broken. Newspapers reported on this disappearance, naming the whole thing the missing children's incident. Police would even charge William with the crimes after finding security footage of the golden mascot suit luring kids to the back. But
He
they
got-
couldn't convict him. They had no bodies, and his face had been hidden behind the mascot suit the entire time. What they
Damn,
had
dude.
was
They
circumstantial
couldn't get
at
him.
best. And so he walked away a free man. But Henry knew the truth. In these murders, he saw his daughter Charlie all over again. So he threw Afton out of the company and shuttered the doors to the old pizzeria.
Okay,
Henry would keep the
okay.
franchise quiet for 2 years. This would not happen again. This could not happen again. How could he protect the kids? Finally, he developed a solution. He would implement an even more extreme security system in the form of new animatronics. Toy animatronics, inspired by the toys that they had been selling years ago.
Wait,
but
what?
these guys, these were special. They were a new breed of robot with facial recognition abilities.
But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database so they can detect a predator a mile away.
All the
That's great until it gets abused.
original animatronics, now withered with age, were moved to the new location. With a plan in place, it was time to try once more. The year
I actually got a good idea. How about we just keep the whole place closed, bro? Why we gotta reopen?
was 1987, and the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was making headlines in local newspapers. Headlines that just so happened to catch the attention of William Afton. Freddy's was back, and without him, that
pissed.
was his idea.
He's
his
pissed, bro.
character. Henry was, yet again, trying
Dude,
to
this is
cut
gonna drive him
out of the
even more
picture.
mad.
No. As long long as these restaurants stayed open, William would always come back. Then he noticed the phone number to apply at the bottom of the article. $100 a week to apply call. Afton would
Hey,
go back,
$100.50.
not as an owner or co-founder. He would go back in the one place that they would least suspect him, a lowly day shift security guard. There it was, buried in the back of parts and services, mixed in with the old withered animatronics, was the golden rabbit.
Didn't his son become a security guard, they said?
He used his crank to pull open the spring locks. It was time for Bonnie to give an encore performance.
Oh,
We
bro.
had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
Dude, could you imagine?
Lockdown, no one is allowed in or out, you know, especially concerning any previous employees. When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift. A position just became available.
1987.
So, is that an actual voice clip from the game? And just imagine being one of those kids or just being an adult and being like attacked by an animatronic. For a child, they trust it, right? Because it looks cute. It's an animatronic being let in and then it attacks you. Like, dude, that is so sinister, dude. This dude Afton is evil.
5 more kids. He didn't know what felt better, getting back into the suit after 2 long years of waiting, or knowing how devastating this would be to Henry the next morning. He didn't even try to hide
Two
his
birds with
crime
one
this
stone,
time,
I
just
guess,
more
huh?
Blood on Henry's hands. He'd failed to protect the kids again. The restaurant had only been open for a few weeks, but William was sure that this would get it to close. Good, if he couldn't have Freddy's, no one would. Whenever a new pizzeria opened, he would be there. But as he sat in his bunker, something else started to linger in William's mind.
What
He had
now?
seen something strange. The old withered animatronics, they had been wandering around the building, spurred on by the puppet. It was almost like those old robots
What?
were trying to save the kids. Save them? They couldn't, obviously, but still, how were they moving? It was almost like they had been given life somehow. Did
Were they haunted by the kids that he threw in there?
he have something to do with that? The following day, the news would report a security guard getting bitten by one of the animatronics during the day shift. Was that bite meant for him? William's curiosity was stronger now than his bloodlust. He had to learn more, but how? There was no way he'd ever be able to get inside another Freddy's pizzeria. Heck, there was practically no way a Freddy's would ever open again. He needed to create something new, something brand new. He needed to create his own pizzeria.
So he could start
Due to the
murdering more
massive
people?
success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
Circus Baby's Pizza World.
What?
This
That's a
would be the place
weird
where he could
ass
continue
name,
his
bro.
work. No longer just murdering, experimenting. He needed more kids, and he needed them alive. And knowing that he couldn't show his face
serious?
on the restaurant floor, he needed a way of remotely capturing his victims and preserving them for his work. With that goal in mind, he designed a new breed of animatronic. Their endoskeletons fluid and flexible. He equipped them with sound lures that could mimic voices. They could isolate children. They could incapacitate and contain them.
Is
with
this where that
zero direct
Fazgoo
input
comes into
from him.
play?
It was brilliant. He was brilliant. Far beyond the simple bars and wires of Henry's designs. And the characters he chose for this were uniquely his. His new roster wasn't going to be tainted by Henry's disgusting barnyard.
So he went
murder.
completely
Instead, it was back to
original.
His characters. His
Oh, okay, I
creations.
see,
Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, as
All
well
those
as 2
three,
special
okay.
ones. The first, Ballora, was an homage to the woman who left him. Now she would never leave him again. The second, the titular baby, was designed with his baby in mind. Elizabeth, his youngest child. She would always be Daddy's little
Dude,
girl.
this
the one
guy
that
is
listened to him,
sick,
the one
dude.
that obeyed until the day that she didn't.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her? She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me?
What the hell's gonna happen to...
The day before Circus Baby's Pizza World opened, she disobeyed. She didn't listen. Left alone with Baby, she got too close. The animatronic ripped in half and swallowed her whole.
What the fuck?
Scared and confused child fading into eternal darkness.
What the actual hell? It has the ability to do that? What is going on?
At the time Afton found her, it was too late. She was gone. He immediately canceled the launch of Circus Babies under the guise of a gas leak. But wait, as he sat there at the foot of the stage, he noticed that something was different. The eye color of the robot had changed. Baby had been built with blue eyes, but now they were emerald green, the same color as Elizabeth's. Was she in there?
Are you
Could
kidding
this
me?
all be connected to the free-moving
Are you telling me
animatronics
they
that we'd
actually
seen at
haunted the
Freddy's? He had to know
animatronics?
more. His mourning turned to excitement. He
I mean, that
had
would
to
explain why they
return to
tried to
where it
save
all
the
started.
kids.
1993. Pathetic. This place was pathetic. Henry had clearly tried to reopen one final time with those old original animatronics from so long ago, but William's damage to the brand had been permanent. These things stank of death. They hadn't been washed in decades. But even if they had, nothing could wash away the stink of murder that haunted these halls.
With the souls in these friggin' things.
William repeatedly snuck into the old broken restaurant to lure the living animatronics to him, one by one dismantling them, robbing them of their endoskeletons. The metal had to be the secret. It had to contain the remnants of life itself. But he had to know for sure. Leaping out of a room that was invisible to the animatronics programming, he dragged the oversized robotic skeletons back to his underground workshop, back to where Circus Baby watched on with glowing, curious eyes.
Which is his
eyes
kid.
that somehow felt alive. Not knowing what else to do, William melted the robotic parts down. 5 animatronic endoskeletons reduced down to one silvery puddle of goo. Could he transfer this living metal to his own creations? He had to try. He picked up a syringe and filled it with the molten metal.
He thinks it's living metal. Is it really living metal?
Wiry endoskeleton. And suddenly the coils came to life, like snakes writhing.
Oh, this is some like black magic stuff, dude.
Metal moved and jolted on its own.
Dr. Frankenstein over here.
The secret to life itself. Except something was clearly wrong. The movements were erratic. They were violent, angry. Baby didn't act this way. She had been calm, collected. This was clearly something else. Something mindless and frantic. Perhaps by mixing the souls and then portioning them out, he had created incomplete beasts.
That makes sense.
Keep testing to truly understand it. He needed more of this remnant. As he searched the old pizzeria one more time for any remaining scraps of metal, the ghosts attacked. His past victims come to collect their due.
Okay,
all
good.
led by Cassidy. The 5 lined up and blocked
Yeah, murk his ass, bro.
His mind reeled. The scientific implications of this were incredible. Ghosts, real ghosts that he could see, all standing against him. But what could they do? What couldn't they do? He panicked as Cassidy approached. How do you stop something that's already dead? Maybe with the thing that resulted in their death in the first place. He would get into his suit like old times. He would regain his power over them just like the day that they died. He was the genius. He was the one in the suit. He was the one in charge.
What happened?
Spring lock snapped into place. Maybe it was this.
It murked his ass.
Maybe it was the leaky abandoned restaurant. Maybe it was just fate coming to collect its due. He didn't know. The only thing he did know was that his brain was suddenly filled with searing white hot pain.
Yeah, dude, it's not over, bro. This is even worse. Because he ain't gonna die. He's gonna become immortal.
Was collapse. Blood slowly oozing out of the suit and pooling onto the floor around him. It couldn't end like this. It wouldn't end like this. His work was unfinished. Unable to move, his only option was to survive, to live, to keep living. It took days lying in his own blood, but eventually someone found him. A security guard making a normal report. When he saw the animatronics torn apart in the middle of the party room floor, it caused him to file an immediate report of a break-in. An owner would have to come in and claim the damage. And who else would it be other than
Henry?
Hope jumped in Afton's heart. Henry would see him. They were partners after all. He would be the one to help save him, to get him out of the suit, to relieve him from
he's been living for 3 days?
The secret room.
He's still alive?
Fell on Afton sitting there in the pool of red, and Henry, saying nothing, turned.
Oh, that's cold, bro. I don't blame him. Killed his daughter.
That due to budget restrictions, the previously mentioned
Try to ruin him.
are being sealed at most locations, including this one. Nothing is being taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside, then it's your own fault. Management also requests that this room not be mentioned to family, friends.
Yeah, we don't talk about any of this.
And so there
And
Afton
insurance
would sit,
representatives.
hanging on for 30 years, trapped behind the walls with an iron will that refused to die. End of this part.
Serious?
I say this part because it's not officially the end of the Afton era just yet, but this just felt like a really solid stopping point. The episode has gone on forever.
All right, man. That was crazy. The Afton era, absolutely wild. The dude is sick. He's evil. And he, got to a breaking point. But I feel like he was already a little bit messed up even before everything that happened, right? He was like obsessed with wanting to bring things to life. It's a little bit mad doctorish, if you ask me. I'm curious to see what's going to happen over 40 years. Apparently, there's 40 more years of Fazbear, and he was in the back room for 30 years or something like that, just waiting to come back. I think that's what they said at the end of it. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. Really, really sad that those kids all died, man. I mean, granted, I know it's not real, but dude, this is pretty twisted. And this is apparently a kid's horror game, or is this like for adults or teens? Like, who is this aimed towards? Because I really do not know anything about Five Nights at Freddy's. I never played it. So I would love to hear your thoughts down below. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time.